Today's episode is a little bit different. It's a collaboration with another creative podcast, Behind the Art Inspiration. Caroline Karp is a romantic expressionist painter, founder and artist of International Art Collective, and a host of Behind the Art Inspiration podcast. She's really cool, she's really talented. This conversation has been posted on her channel already. As always, you will find all the information about Caroline in the show notes, and go check out her show. She's got really cool guests and really cool stories.
Welcome to the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast. And I just want to take a little brief break because I'm working from my home and sometimes my dog barks, and she might do that now. But anyways, it's a little caveat. But my podcast is a sneak peek into the studio practices of all types of artists, conversations for collectors who love to listen to the banter and creative process of international artists. I'm Caroline Karp. Let's get to it. Now, I'm going to let Galina talk now, and I'm going to mute.
Hi, Caroline. Thanks for having me on your show. Well, my name is Galina Marcus, and not only I'm a painter just like you, Caroline, we are also fellow podcasters. I have my own show that I run with my husband, who is a musician and a martial artist, and the show is called In the Art Scene. And we've been doing it since January this year, and we're just about to close our first season, or already recording the second season, having a bliss talking to all kinds of people. And it's just, I am constantly fascinated by the minds of creatives of all kinds of practices. So yeah, it's just, I guess you're having the same experience.
I am. And thanks for taking over there. I knew you could do it because, like you said, you're a fellow podcaster. But there's just, Aria has never barked during a show, but I always know that it can happen. So thanks for jumping in there. But did you mention that you're from San Diego?
Yes, I am in San Diego. I'm originally from Russia, and I have been in San Diego for 5.5 years now.
Nice.
And I only have been full-time artist since 2019.
Wow. And so I've been a full-time artist since I'm just joking, but I've been painting since I was 2. And I did notice that you wrote that you've been painting since early childhood.
Yes, I was.
So,
I just never was a career choice.
Right. And
Until
so,
recently.
yeah. So we have quite a bit in common, even though there's a lot of differences too. We have stuff in common, but I want to know how living in Moscow, how long did you live there, you said?
Well, I grew up there. I was born there, I grew up there, and I left when I was 32. Yeah.
32?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that being from there has influenced your artwork in some way.
Well, first of all, for a little education in art that I have received, because my first degree is in fashion design, and we did have obviously quite a bit of drawing, quite a bit of dry medium, and a composition, obviously. Russian art school is quite different. It's very, it's a classic in the way that, they can beat the life out of you for keeping the proper proportions and, greeting everything. And so it was very classic, and I cannot say that I enjoyed a lot of it during my education, but it helps me so much now. It does.
Well, here's what's interesting about that. So I grew up with having a private art instructor. It was like, an after school activity that I started fairly young. And then up through high school, I kept with that same private instructor. And she is a wildlife artist that works for Ducks Unlimited. And so she taught me classic realism. So how to make a composition, how to mix colors with oil paint, how to be very, very tight and perfect, right? So then when I went to college, and went to art school, I had that background, right? So I knew, and it's the same thing as you're saying, like you have that kind of background, and then what you do with it is up to you. So what I did with it is initially I became an abstract artist. I went the total opposite, more abstract expressionism, putting paint on the canvas with Rust-Oleum. Like I wanted the blackest black. So I used Rust-Oleum, and then, I had my own studio space. I was getting a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So I had my own studio space to just dedicate the entire years to work on artwork. And I went really large, and I would dip my towel in turpentine, and I would rub back into the canvas. So it was more about the process and the exploration of the paint, more about natural phenomena and emotion, which was not what I was doing in high school. In high school and below that, I was more focused on the direct, this is what this looks like extreme realism. Then what happened was after that, some of the realism started creeping back into the style that I have now, which I think is pretty unique. Like, I don't know. It's even going a little bit more of, like you can see the one behind me. It's like that bit of realism, but then that bit of fantasy and expressionism and mark making.
I love your style a lot.
Well, thank you. How would you describe it?
I'm not sure how would I describe it. It's well, I think what you say on your website, that this is a romantic expressionism, kind of fits very well. I do like it that it's very vibrant, and at the same time it's loose. It's not. I have problems sometimes. I find myself really, getting into my head and trying. I paint quite tight, which I really want to let go of. And in those rare moments when I basically meditate and just express whatever, and I've done quite a bit of intuitive painting, those are my favorite pieces. But whenever I have an object in mind, or sort of a scene in mind, I find myself going into that tight mode, something that was bitten into me in school.
Right. And it does become liberating once you can. I don't mean to say let that go, because you don't let it go, but it kind of turns into something different. Right. And
Yes.
it's almost like, so I still work with children in early childhood, right? And they don't have limitations. They'll just paint, and it's almost like that. It's that childlike, just experimentation and getting fascinated by what colors make other colors, right? And what happens if you rub really hard, or what happens if you don't wash your brush. That's one thing that is a pillar of my work is I rarely wash my brush in between colors.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, because it's those are the magic moments where, oh, look at that color in there. It looks kind of neat.
Yeah, and I relate to your experience with children because I ran a children's art camp last summer, because the neighbors in the community asked me, because children were, practically out of school. They were stuck to their computers. So I put the folding table in my driveway and a little canopy, and I had a group of 7 and 8-year-olds, and then I had 11-year-olds join me. And at first, I was terrified because I never worked with children before. And then it became just such a, yeah, just like you said, a liberating experience watching those children just getting into the zone and having at it. And
Yeah,
then on the contrast, when I started working with 11-year-olds, those are, like good students. They are waiting for instructions. They are trying to copy what I do. They're more conscious or more afraid of making a mistake.
right.
So, and it was it was quite interesting to see that in the span of just 3 years, the mindset of those children is changing.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about, like, oh my God, how much crap do I need to clear in my own head? Because I'm 37 and I've had, quite a bit of education and work experience, et cetera, et cetera. And it all, it all weighs on you and it
Right.
all, yeah,
So I've seen the natural flow. Like I've witnessed it over the years. I've been working with early childhood. Oh God, I don't even want to say how many years because it will age me. But I watch a 4-year old, a 4 or 5-year old, and it's almost like they are still connected to something else. Like they're still connected to where they kind of have no idea how beautiful what they're painting is. Like they're not even, they're just up there and they're just dancing and they're just moving and what they're doing is incredible, but they don't have that self-judgment yet.
exactly.
Right? It's just all
That's the right
beautiful
word.
it's amazing. Like I've watched it. It's not all the students, like it's not all of them, but some of them you can just watch how the beauty comes out. And um, I think that when I'm painting, I try to get into that space that they're in of just fascination of what would happen if I did this, and not overthinking the work. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, I do believe that we are, as we're growing older, we lose that connection with, I don't know, you call it whatever, universe, divine, nature. Um, yeah, and being like a child. Well, we all know what Picasso said, right?
tell us.
Every yeah, every child is an artist. The problem starts when they grow up.
Right.
So
Right. And just on a side note, I offer retreats and workshops, and I haven't done one in a couple of years, obviously because of COVID. But I'm kind of thinking about doing one in June or July, which is not necessarily for artists, right? It's for anybody who kind of wants to just feel that natural wonder again and be creative on canvas, and have that relaxing feeling. Because would you agree that when you paint, it's a whole new world to go into?
yeah, yeah, it takes you out of your head and yeah, it's a totally different experience. And to your point, and I would love to experience one of your retreats and workshops. I'll see if I can come down to Florida when you open up again, and
We're
yeah,
open.
keep me posted. Yeah,
We
keep me
are
posted.
open. This one I think is going to be in DC.
Okay. Well, anyway, keep me posted.
Yeah, I
I'll see
will.
if I can come down there.
Great.
So what I did with my teaching practice is I took it online last year, and I actually had quite a good experience with that because I was able to connect with people in different parts of the world. And my class is intuitive abstract class, and I designed it with mindfulness at the base of it. So I take people through some breathing exercise and meditation, some visualization process, like few times during the class.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
every single time I'm kind of trying to lead them deeper and deeper, taking them away from the left hemisphere to their right hemisphere. And those are some things that are happening. Like you can see the transformation after like the first hour, and usually I take 2 hours for that. After the first hour, people finally start letting go, and
Yes.
this is when magic happens. And I have seen those, and I haven't had a single person leaving my class without a really powerful work. And some of them were even shocked by it. And a
Yeah.
lot of them came with absolutely preconceived notions that I am not creative. I've never held a brush in my hands. I'm bad at stick figures. So when you remove that self judgment, when you create the space when they can realize that there's no mistake to be made. And there's something inside that needs to be let out. When that something comes out and becomes a visual picture, and they can look at it, they can introduce themselves to that thing, that changes their perspective a lot. I have a couple of people who are working with me. It's practically like a therapy. They're coming every week, and they are coming starting, like, I had such a long and hard week, and I had some, fluctuations in relationships or hardships at work and things like that. And then we kind of take it from there and start exploring what's actually going on, what they feel inside, and how to release it.
Yeah, and I have found that some people are natural at facilitating others in that process. And it sounds like that you are one of them.
And I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody last night about how I enjoy doing that with other people too. And I guess my little laboratory is the children, because they might come to me with sensory issues or pretty much anything. And by the end they just blossom, and it's just finding what it is that makes that person tick. And it's the same thing with adults.
And I think what you're doing is actually maybe even more important, because we all have those stories about teacher in the third grade that said
Oh my
something
gosh. Yeah.
about you, and it completely ruined your life, right?
Why is it always third grade?
Right? I don't know why, but it's always third grade. So
Yeah.
having a teacher who is in your corner and inspiring you kind of uh, leaves you with no limitations, and or understanding that you don't have to fit the box, right? Because how many people do we meet who say, "Oh, my teacher in the third grade, I love drawing, but my teacher said that I have no talent and I should not pursue it," and they became a super unhappy accountant for the rest of their lives, right?
Right.
It's
Or
I
stop
think it's yeah,
daydreaming and looking out the window.
exactly.
But that's who we are. That's how we
Yeah,
create.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you're doing an amazing job. Thank you.
Yes. And so I want to hear a little bit about your podcast.
Okay, well, that was my next question to you too, by the way. You beat me at it.
I
So
mentioned,
yeah, I think the podcast is, in a way, was my response to the imposter syndrome.
and tell us the name before you continue.
It's In the Art Scene. So
Yes.
you can find us at intheartscene.com. That's the website. There is a tab to read the blog posts, because we have an adjacent blog post to every episode.
Mm.
And actually, it started as a blog,
Okay.
and then it became a podcast, because it was kind of easier to just talk to people and then transcribe whatever we were talking about into the article. And then I thought, why do I spend my time transcribing? They do it better than I will ever do, and it became a podcast. And at that point, my husband joined me, and he, being a really good musician and loving the editing process,
That's
that's his
good.
domain. So we're co-hosting the interviews. Sometimes I do interviews by myself, but then we record the intro and outro together. Sometimes we do interviews together, and well, in the first season, I think I invited the majority of the people for the podcast, but a lot of them are our mutual friends, or mutual connections that we both know. One, and that will be the last interview of the season, and that's a spoiler alert right
Mhm.
here, is Ron's sensei, karate sensei, and he was talking about how to be an artist of life. And that's an amazing conversation that we had. So by the time you release your episode, and obviously we're streaming right now, so
Right.
no one
Nobody's here right now.
listened to it yet. Yeah. So, but by the time I post this on my podcast, that will be already in the past. But anyway, yeah. So the whole idea became, I really was creating a community, but I felt a little self-conscious to kind of, knock on the door to artists or art groups who are already established and say, hey, let me, I want to be your friend. I want to play with you.
Right.
So it kind of, I don't know why. It just didn't work for me. So I did feel quite imposter. I was struggling quite a bit with it. And then I decided that, well, okay, maybe I will do it, backwards in reverse. I will do something for the community,
Mm.
which became this blog. I decided that I will interview artists and I will just create this platform where I can showcase whatever they do or tell the story that they don't have any other places to tell. And I pretty much became friends or at least acquainted with every single one of them.
Nice.
And now, as we're doing a podcast and we're growing, I am humbled every single time when I hear them thanking us for doing it. So yeah, the podcast and In the Art Scene project is just, a way of creating a community. I was craving for it for myself, so kind of created it for myself.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that we met because I kind of craved the same thing.
Let's take a short coffee break. This podcast is the passion project that I produce and finance myself. If you want to support the show, you are welcome to volunteer, but the easier way is to just buy me a coffee. There's a link for it in the show notes and on our website, intheartscene.com. Thank you for your support.
My podcast started, so in March of last year, I had the inspiration to start the International Online Art Collective, which was a collection of artists from around the world. There's 15 of us. And we're supportive of each other. We have shows, we have collaborations, and we promote each other. And so the podcast began by me interviewing them. So it became really natural, and I really enjoyed the connection of like being able to see these people in person and going to their studio all over the world, right? And allowing them to talk about their work. Like this is the first time I've talked about my own work is with you, coincidentally. So it feels really good to actually be able to speak about what I do in my work. Artists feel good, believe it or not, even though if they're shy or whatnot, they do want to be heard and they do want to talk about their artwork.
Because it's their passion.
Yeah.
Right?
And so just like with kids, I do the same thing with kids. So I just did that with these adults. And the way, so I'm on season 2 now. You're part of season 2. So in season 2, and this is episode 3, I don't know, I probably wasn't able to say that because Aria started barking. But in season 2, what I'm doing is I'm expanding my scope. So like yesterday I released a podcast interviewing a food artist.
I saw that.
And how fun is that? Like, because I don't want to I want to do all types of artists, right? So I have a food artist, I've had a musician. It's going to take a little bit, I'm pivoting a bit. Like I'm pivoting in how I'm showing up and who I'm interviewing. That's kind of exciting. And what's exciting about it is there are no rules.
Yeah. It's your creative domain. You create the rules, right?
Right.
So you're going to do whatever you want with it. So how did you eventually meet with your 15 artists who became that international group?
Originally, we were all in the same art group online with Sergio Gomez, who's
Okay.
also been on my podcast. We've actually done a few things together now. I've been on his podcast. He's been on my podcast. He does the podcast called Breakfast with Sergio, and that's how I found him through Instagram. I connected with that group once again to feel a community with artists, right? And we decided that sort of an engagement group, like we were in an engagement group, and then I had the idea of I really want a tighter connection with some people, and I have a vision of who wants to help me, like who wants to help, and I was just so happy that people wanted to join me in making something bigger. Like this was in March, so this was when the world was shutting down. And, here I am in my studio. I knew there were other artists out there that were also in their studios. And I think it was just a way for us to not be trapped in our studios alone, right? Or creating alone,
Yes.
and just forage bigger connection, especially since all of our shows were being closed. Like so many artists being disappointed because gallery shows weren't happening. I mean, I remember back then I had artwork, I think, in 3 different places that I had to figure out how to get back. Right? I had to figure out, I was like, okay, I have this piece there and it's closed down and I'm not really even supposed to be going anywhere, but I really want the artwork back in my studio because I don't know where this is going. And everybody was having the same situations happening. And so it was a nice way to check in with each other, to be like, yeah, I'm having that same exact experience. This is how I handled it. So that's how the collective started. And I mean, I did not in any way, shape, or form do it all myself. I have it's amazing how talented in different kinds of ways that these 15 artists are. Like we have phenomenal video editors, we have kind of like branding type experts. We have There's one person in particular who is more of she keeps track of everyone. Like if you're not following through with what you're supposed to be doing, she'll let you
Like
know about it.
an admin.
An admin, of course. And just everybody is kind of falling into their roles. And my role, I'm just a member. Like I'm a member of the International Online Art Collective. And I have this really cool podcast and I love doing my podcast. And so from that, I just have met so many interesting people like ME from London. She came on my podcast and um, we found out that we went to the same university and she's all the way in London.
Huh.
Right. And is so fun and interesting. And I just like getting on Zoom and having conversations with her. And Morrison used to live in Cambodia and he just moved to Australia and he's renovating a church to live in. And he's just so dang interesting. Right. And so Morrison is part of the collective. Emmy isn't, but I'm making a connection with you. So it's all about connections. And I don't think any of it would have happened actually if it weren't for the pandemic.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, 2020 was quite a transformative year. I can't, and I don't want to say that it was a good year because it was so different for everybody, but I think universally it was transformative for all of us in
And we're
one
not
way
done.
or the other. And especially creative people had to be creative about a lot of different things and how to go about their business, how to rearrange the studios, how to organize the online shows, how to connect with other people, how to connect with their collectors. Yeah, it was the the whole year is a creative challenge.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I probably don't know a single creative in my circle who wouldn't have come on the other side with something new, original that works for them now, and that's probably going to be, in their routine or in their business practice from now on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I did deep dives into many facets of my world. One was just my computer. Like I developed systems and how to organize my videos, just my videos and how I wanted to document. I documented so much. I painted so much and I documented. And that is what fuels my social media now is the documentation I did in 2020. I mean, I have new stuff now too, but and the show that I created, like I did the most cohesive body of work that I've ever done, maybe since college. I did do pretty cohesive there, but because I was testing it, I was seeing, oh, what if I focus on one thing for an entire year, which was my sailboats, right?
I
So
love your sailboats.
thank you. I still love them and I still want to do them because I do love them. But so now I'm working on a new series, which is From the Garden Bed of the Mind, which was so I did so much inner work that I already know that the next show I'm doing or the next exhibition is From the Garden Bed of the Mind, right? But what I haven't done, because it's not quite time, but it will be, is reaching out to galleries again. Reaching out to galleries for solo exhibitions of these big, large collections. I find it's been fairly easy to have my own solo shows and to organize those, and I don't even know if it's really important with the galleries. What is your view on that?
Um, I don't have a view on that because I don't work with galleries too much. I
Yeah.
belong to the Art Guild here
Mm.
in San Diego, and we have our own gallery and we kind of have a rotation. So I don't really deal with the galleries in the way of, I do apply to the group shows.
Right.
I do that, but I don't even think I have enough of one style thing for a solo show because I'm the type of the artist, like I'm all over the place. I
Mm.
change my color scheme quite often. I change the techniques often, and I keep joking that my longest series is 3.5 works.
Oh wow. Okay.
I have one now that is 4.5. But I was also a part that I had to overcome this past year about myself because we kind of know the ways of art world is functioning, and it's like you need to go to the galleries, you need to have a certain body of work. If you want to show somewhere, you need to follow the trends maybe, or something like that, and you need to market in the certain way. And I found that this is just taking away the joy from me because
Right.
if I'm creating 3 pieces and then I get bored with it and I have a new shiny object and I have a rush to start doing something new, why do I need to limit myself, right? Because our work is about having joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just, didn't stick with one. So,
Well,
but
go ahead.
no, but I do harvest like some of the series that I've done. Earlier last year, like this one that you might see over here, I had a few portraits like this, and this
Yeah.
is now a basis for the guitar that I'm creating for a nonprofit auction now. So it's drying as we speak, literally, because I need to deliver it tomorrow. So
So you painted a painting of a guitar, or you paint it on a guitar?
on the guitar.
Oh, wow. That's so
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
And this is the second year I do that for them.
Uh-huh.
And I enjoyed because this also kind of speaks to this is a nonprofit that creates art programs for schools who cut off the budgets and got rid of all the arts.
Okay.
So they help children who don't have access to art supplies, to art education here in San Diego locally. And
Oh,
this is one of their biggest fundraisers a year. So I did one last year and I'm doing one this year. And I'm like, yeah, it makes me very proud.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to help out the kiddos.
Yes. So, and it feels really good to know that you are contributing.
Hmm.
So, just like a podcast for me is kind of a my way of giving back to the art community, and it's on a larger scale in the US and beyond. We're actually going to have our first international, not the first international, but first European artist
Mm.
coming on the podcast soon in the second season as well. So I'm catching up with you. But it just feels good when you know that something that you're doing, either connecting with uh, a collector or makes the good otherwise, in the world. And um, I reached out to, we have another very interesting organization. It's called Prison Arts Collective
Mm.
here in San Diego, and it's part of the California Transformative Arts Program, who works with the correctional institutions. They are doing, and this is another thing, they're doing their own podcast, and I'm going to have them on my podcast soon, hopefully. Um, yeah, I signed up as a volunteer when we have chance after all the COVID restrictions are lifted. They bring artists to teach right there in the facilities. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So when you see how art transforms someone's life, this is by far the biggest reward.
Yeah. And it is so transformative. And I think with people, not everyone, but I think people are starting to realize that the quiet and the introspectiveness wait, no, I'm mixing up those words. The introspective nature of being an artist or creating artwork is so good for the soul.
Yes, it is true.
Yeah. Yeah. So before I end the broadcast, do you have anything else that you would like to say?
Uh,
Or need to
I
ask me?
believe I had some things when we began, but then kind of conversation took the other
Okay.
route, and I'm quite happy with the conversation that we had so far.
Okay.
I am really grateful for you having me on your show, and um, I'm very grateful for you coming to my show
Yes.
because that will be double
Definitely.
posted. So,
Yeah, and I want to thank you for coming on my podcast and allowing me on your podcast. And I want to thank everybody that's watching and listening as we share and we both love connecting and we both love collaboration and we both love art. And it would be great if you were to subscribe. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel, and it's probably Galena Marcus Art, I believe.
Okay.
Galena Marcus Art, I think, is my YouTube channel, but I will send you the link. I don't do
Okay.
a lot of videos, but I keep, pushing myself to do more of the videos. I'm very
Mm.
camera shy, if you noticed. I actually have a plan for the new video. I work at the fine art print shop
Mm.
twice a week, and there are interesting things, tips that I can give to artists for the producing the prints and giclées of their work that
Okay.
I wanted to share. So I was kind of collecting it for a while. Now I kind of have a cohesive list of what I want to talk about. So that's probably coming soon on my channel. So yeah, I will appreciate if people will sign up. But
Great.
if you just find me on Instagram at Galina Marcus Art, I will appreciate that as well.
Yeah, and I would love people subscribe to my art channel, which is Caroline Karp Artist. And being a facilitator of conversation, typically what I do for my podcast is I pose an open-ended question to each artist in my true Caroline style. And it's simply send me a one-sentence blurb about you and what inspires you to do what you do. And the conversation flows from there.
You realize that this is like one of the most difficult tasks to describe what you do in one sentence, right?
I know, but it kind of gets somebody thinking, and it 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 like I guess what it does is it sparks a conversation, and then I kind of meet with the person beforehand, and that's actually when I formulate what I want to talk about. Like I pick up on their spark a little bit, and it's been kind of fun. But
Your
that's
channel is amazing, and everybody should sign up for it.
yeah, thanks.
Subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell notification, go check Caroline's website, go check her Instagram account, and find her on LinkedIn because, LinkedIn made us connected, and that's a really good tool to find
Yeah,
artists around the world. I didn't know it until I started looking for artists on LinkedIn too.
and I just reached out to you. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
bing, and I messaged you. So that's the way that the world goes now. People are open to that, just that, hey, you want to come on my podcast? And they're like, sure.
I'm actually asking myself, is it how the world works now, or we were just too afraid to
We
try
were.
before?
Maybe so.
Because I was so afraid of reaching out to artists and, sparking the conversation. And now I I find that everyone is just open. Everyone really, and I actually heard on some other podcasts that, well, artists are so shy, they don't want to do the podcast or interviews or anything like that. I haven't find that so difficult. Because when you start talking to people about what they are passionate about, try to stop them, right?
Yeah.
So meet them where they are. And we all are in the art scene.
In the art scene, I love that title.